live going. Hello. My name is Andras Maros. Actually, it's Maros Andras in Hungarian. I was born in Budapest on April 30th, 1944, which was the first day of bombing of Budapest. In fact, my mother was literally on the delivery table when the bombs started coming. So I was born to what, understandably, is probably a way to describe. My mother was a hysterical woman because everybody scattered, nobody was around, and she couldn't. She was strapped down, so she couldn't even participate. But it's not so much my story that I'm here to share at the moment, except for a few steps along the way that our story, after I grew up and through my preteen years, 12 is when the Hungarian Revolution started in 1956, right? And we escaped, and my story, the story of our escape, will be another story I'm going to share. But I'm skipping to the part about when I really became inspired by my roots, my Magyar roots. Magyar is what we call ourselves. The rest of the world calls us Hungarian. But in fact, we are part of the Magyar tribe of the Uyghur nation of Mongolia, of the 1700s. And I'm sorry, so the 600 AD, 700 AD is around when the Magyar story begins in terms of how we got here. So I was 12 years old. We came to the United States, and I have to say that I really assimilated rather easily, or at least it didn't feel terribly challenging. I was just determined to be to assimilate as fast as I could. I didn't want to have an accent. I used to practice speaking into a mirror, and to make sure that I would pronounce and make sure that the way my mouth moved and everything would be authentic. That would help with the pronunciation of the word. So anyway, I knew vaguely the history of my people, but not too long after the I don't know, some of you may remember the TV series called Roots, where Kunta Kinte was the star, and he was he wasn't the star, his character was. Goes back to the history, to his roots in Africa, and it was around that time when my mother gave me this book. It's called The Spirit of Hungary, and this is like and it was actually, I have it right here, 1991. It was for my birthday in 1991. That my mother gave me these books, because I had, occasionally I'd ask her questions as much as she could share with me about our roots, my roots, our roots as not just my personal roots, but of our people. And it's particularly interesting because as I'll tell the story, it's going to become quite clear what the Magyar people, how they've been so instrumental in the history of the evolution of mm, of the Western civilization, but not just the Western civilization, but of Eurasia, because we come from that part of the continent of Asia, or Mongolia was, that now the people, the Uyghurs, it's pronounced the Uyghurs, of course, now they are making history because of the Chinese suppression of the people, and they're singling out the Uyghurs because they are the most difficult to control. seems to be the story of the Magyar people. We are not to really be controlled very much, although we have been under the control of a lot of people, including Stalin when I was before the revolution. You know, the communist Stalin oppressive years. Um, anyway, and then the as the story will unfold, it'll also relate to how what's going on right now in Ukraine as well. And in this moment in time, we're talking today is what, the 17th? Today is the 17th of February, and it's what is it? It's Thursday, but Putin is today um, is not backing down from attacking Ukraine, as supposedly he was moving his troops out, and all these questions and all this flexing of the muscles of these people like Putin and throughout history. So it was in 1991 when I really started doing my own research into my roots as a Magyar. And this book had a lot of the this book it's like verbal history that was collected, that was finally written down and compiled of from all kinds of different eras of the Hungarian culture that had become. But so I'm going to start from what I put together through these various different stories, these verbal history passed down and then compiled. And it starts around 650 AD or so, when the Magyar was just one of the many tribes of the Uyghur nation. And they would go, they were nomads going up and down the eastern side of those mountains that are in the south, become the Himalayan mountain range. But it goes up on the what is what is now Western China. Anyway, so they went up and down, and then at some point, the name escapes me, but the chief of the Magyar tribe died, and he had two sons, close in age and equally popular. And as opposed to what is customary, that the older son would take over the tribe, inherit the tribe. These two boys decided that they'd be better off maybe splitting up the tribe, staying near close to each other, but that um, that it might be better to have two tribes, brother tribes, and and continue on that way. So that's kind of unusual, to have two warriors, brothers, um, who loved each other, and uh, all the people loved them equally. But anyway, they divided it up and continued on, moving north, south, along those things, until at one point, one of the brothers just kept going south, and they found themselves um, interested in going across that big mountain range down near, uh, the Himalayan mountains, going across to um, ending up to where northern India is, and found themselves in that part of India that was Buddha's um, Buddha country. Which, by the way, not too long ago, I had a chance to visit that area and to confirm a lot of the information that I found out earlier. And so, anyway, so they spent about a whole century in Buddha country, and they got along with the natives beautifully. Natives being Indian, and in terms of their orientation, I guess they were Buddhists already, even though, generally speaking, India is of the Hindu culture. But they found themselves to be very aligned with the same type of philosophy and way of looking at life. And it took them a century before they finally began to move on westward across um, what is now, of course, Pakistan, um, Iran, Iraq, that part of the country, going south of the Black Sea, and across Turkey and maybe what is now Bulgaria, that part of the mountains, and then up to the Carpathian Mountains surrounding it, which is known mostly as Transylvania. They loved that area, so they hung around there for a while, only going down into the Carpathian Basin, which is now what is called Hungary, um, all the way maybe even to the Danube to fish and hunt and fish in that part of the Carpathian Basin. Very fertile, very beautiful land. So that was maybe a century 750 AD or something like that. Now, backing up and to the other brother. The other brother, now I don't have the names because I didn't bother taking too many notes. I just read a lot of stories, and it's just a big picture story is what always interested me. So what happened then was with the other brother, ended up going back up north like it used to be, but it kept going north, and finally went to what is now southern Russia, and getting closer to where Siberia is, and the cold there was not something they weren't interested in. So they made a sharp left turn and headed west on what is now kind of southern Russia, and it took them about as long as the other group to make it to across the across the Ural Mountains, and and ended up around what is now Ukraine. And lo and behold, what happened was the chief at that time passed away and also had two sons. And remembering the story, the historical story of the other half of the tribe that they got disconnected with, but knew about, the brothers decided to do the same. They repeated that historical, significant story, um, that instead of the older brother taking the whole tribe, they split up the tribe. And this time, one of the ones, one of the brothers kind of angled up northwest, um, and ended up in what is now Finland. The other brother um, went kind of southwest, west southwest, and all this took a long time because they were on horseback and they took their time. They never invaded anybody. They knew how to defend themselves, but they were such a people that most of the time they were just received as friendly group. They didn't come to attack. They were just out nomading about. That's the best way I know how to put it. So anyway, so this group that went to the southwest ended up going all the way to where the Danube makes the bend and turns south, coming from the area it starts in Russia, I mean in Germany, and it comes across by Vienna, and then in the modern days it was acted like the border between Czechoslovakia and Hungary, and about 30, 40 miles north of Budapest, the Danube makes a real sharp turn to the south, and in fact, Budapest is around the Danube. On one side is Buda, and the other side is Pest. And if you ever wondered why it's called Buda, it's because the Magyar history of being in Buda country, that's where the name comes from. So, lo and behold, they meet one of the hunting parties of the tribe of the first brother, and that's where they met. They met at the Danube Bend. And this area is a highly spiritual, and it's got beautiful woods, and if you ever been there, my partner Mayana and I took a trip few years ago just for that, to kind of recapture the spiritual influence of that area. And it's called Dobogó Kő, which means heart beating stone. And a beating stone, the heartbeat of a stone, Dobogó Kő. And interestingly enough, I planned that trip for quite some time to do that at some point. And around the time we were about to go, the Dalai Lama made a journey to Hungary and went up to Dobogó. Um, he must have heard similar stories. Um, and in fact, he concurred with the idea that Dobogó area is considered to be the heart chakra of our Mother Earth. So now that I've shared that story, and of course, once the brother or the two different tribes from different directions coming together was an amazing thing, and that's when they decided that that they're gonna stop nomading around and and make this their land, their homeland, and that's when modern day history of Hungary begins. But now that I shared the story, now you'll see the significance of um, not only what's going on with China right now and how they're flexing their um, power, energetic power around the world and suppressing the Uyghurs, um, and how the historical significance of little Hungary, the Magyars, that was where the First World War began, and then also the Second World War. Um, uh, Both of the you can look up the historical what started the world wars, and now the threatening of the Third World War is is very much also playing around that whole historical significance of this of this tribe of Magyars, this people. So even though I was like, before I got into this story, I was not, and never felt inferior because of the fact that I was from Hungary, but certainly I didn't know very much, and I didn't know the significance of the contribution of the Magyar people. And there's just so many, it just goes on and on. But yeah, I let everybody discover that on their own. I just wanted to share this particular story and what it tells, what I know about myself and what I know about what is the Magyar in me. And of course, I'm not 100% Magyar. I've got German and Austrian and Polish. My mother's father was he was, I think, part Polish. Um, his name was Polish, so his father was Polish. Um, so there's that mixture of the Eastern European and Germanic group of people that I'm definitely part with. But on my father's side is actually, well, there's a combination. There's also the German on my father's side, and but also on my grandmother's side, um, it's very strongly Magyar. So there's maybe maximum 25% Magyar. I don't know, maximum, but probably not even that. But how the connection, the Magyar connection is so powerful, and why is because, as expressed in those decision of those sons of the chiefs that passed away to share in the power, and is so significant because it expresses the kind of love of humanity, of the humanity with not only with the actual brother, but the brotherhood of man and the tribe and everybody. And this is how they express themselves all throughout. So, this is what I wanted to share with you all. And so it's a very, very powerful commodity in me or value in me um, that I that has become my life's work in starting my nonprofits, which the first one was about 35 years ago in Los Angeles. It was called Artists for Peace. And now it has become Peace Production. It's the name of the nonprofit that we're working with. And it comes from the knowledge of the fact that we human beings are, all we do is produce things. And what we have been able to produce, unfortunately, is a lot of also wars and destruction and just so much violence and war. Uh, War, which is man's worst act of reason. WAR, war, man's worst act of reason. And so for me to counteract that, seeing that I was born to bombs, I am a born peacenik. And so this is how I bring this all together. So I just can't help myself. But because I'm a Magyar, um, this is this is what's in me, is to help produce peace in the heart of humanity. And in fact, the only chance we have is if we can make love go viral. Oh, I think this is backwards on the thing, but you can see it, making love go viral. And you can find that on our Peace Production website. And I hope you enjoy that story and appreciate the effort of uh, of yourself and hopefully your contribution to helping to shift this direction of humanity's destructive tendencies by making love go viral with blessings of love and peace.